Hi, John here, the Hat Guy. You guys haven't heard from me in a while, and there's been a number of reasons why. But there's something going on in the world right now, in this country specifically, that is terrifying. And it doesn't appear that anybody is willing to battle it. And that scares me even more. A lot of us have been talking about the Second Amendment for years and how, we'll use it to defend ourselves if tyranny should rise up, which is what it was intended for. Tyranny has risen up and it's taken control. And where are we? We're sitting around waiting for someone to do something. Okay. That's what we're doing. Fine. But what do you do when everything starts to be erased? Think of Germany back in the 30s, China in the 50s. Communism came in and took over China. Fascism came in and took over Germany. And what's the first thing they did? They erased the culture. This whole cancel culture, that's what's happening. They're erasing our culture. They're erasing our history. You know what a good way is to fight back? Right here behind me on these shelves and all around this room. I have 13 bookshelves. I like books. I read. One thing that I really enjoy is history. And when I see what's been taught in recent years, and especially now, that passes for history, it sickens me. You've got the Chicago School District this past year. Someone proposed an amendment to ban teaching history until an alternative could be found. That's the phrase itself is inherently terrifying. Nearly every town, and if not your town, then certainly a neighboring town, has a used bookstore. And I say this as an author who, I write science fiction, granted, but authors generally don't promote used bookstores, because if you buy my book at a used bookstore, I get no money for it. But I'm telling you, go to a used bookstore and look for some history books. This one's interesting. This is a 2-volume set. The other one is over on a shelf over there. It's The Outline of History by H.G. Wells. Yeah, he wrote fiction. He also was a historian. It's a fascinating book. You want to find out what's going on in history, find an old history book. Certainly not one written in the modern era. The older you can find it, the closer it is to giving you history from that era. This book was written in 1920. This particular issue is from 1949. It's a great example. America's Way for Humanity, Pictorial History of the World War for Liberty. The title alone tells you how old this book is. It was written prior to World War II because it's talking about the World War. You want to find out what happened? Read a book from back then. This was written 1919. It's in exceptional condition, full of history. This book's 100 years old. This one is part of a set. The set is behind me. I'm sorry, the set is over there. This is a 5-book set, history. It's entitled The World's Great Events. This is more than 100 years old. It's, it's written in Latin, so I don't know exactly what it is, but if I'm not, I think it's 1904 is when this was written. This was written prior to World War I. This is a book that was probably used as a history book when my grandfather was in school. He was born in 1906. This book, when he was 10 years old, would have been a fairly recent history book. Now, it's something nobody ever looks at. I've got the whole set. Great history. You want to find out what happened more than 100 years ago? Read an old book. You into science? This particular book I think I paid $1 for this book at a yard sale. It's entitled First Principles of Natural Philosophy. And my thought when I picked it up was, I'm not interested in philosophy at all. And then I started flipping through it and I realized this is a science book. They just didn't call it science. In 1884, when this book was written, 1884 science book. The 1880s was an amazing decade. The light bulb was invented. The idea for the movie camera was invented. The first commercially viable automobile was invented, all in the 1880s. That's worth reading. This is another science book, Introduction to Science. It's not quite as old, but it's from 1915, around the beginning of World War I, that era. Marvelous Wonders of the Whole World. It's a history book of sorts. It's talking about some of the great things that have happened around the world. But when you look at when it was written, it most certainly is a history book. Copyright 1882. I bought this book when I was writing a book in my time travel series that took place in the 1880s. I wanted a book that would give me an idea of what life was like. Amazing source of information. Along with it, I bought this one. The American Manual of Useful, Interesting, and Instructive Information. 1882. This is in beautiful condition. This book tells you everything about what life was like in the 1880s, the modern world at the time. Amazing history book. Don't just listen to what some modern day college professor tells you, because most of them are either following an agenda or listening to someone who is following an agenda. It's terrifying what's happening. When you start erasing your history, you're going to repeat some of the worst parts of it. And that's what they don't want us to know. They, meaning the people behind all of this modern day version of book burning. I mean, Dr. Seuss is racist, really? If you've ever read a Dr. Seuss book, you know right away that he's not racist. He had an agenda. Yeah, he fought the Nazis in World War II, and he did it through his books. He certainly was not racist. He was doing his part, fighting fascism the best he could. What does the modern world do to fight fascism? They accuse the other side of being fascists. What do they do to fight racism? They accuse the other side of being racists. Because if you repeat something often enough and loud enough, people will begin to believe it. Prime example. Look at what's been going on for the past year about this virus. Is it real? Yeah, it's real. Is it as deadly as they say it is? People do die. But what's the survival rate? I've been saying this from the beginning. What's the survival rate? It's greater than 99%. Did you notice how nobody had the flu last year? It's, at any rate, getting off on a tangent. Go to an old bookstore. Find some old history books. Buy them and keep them for your kids. Find some kids' books. Here's a book. When I was a kid, we had this. It's just full of beautiful pictures and great stories, and they're timeless. It's a great book for kids. It teaches all sorts of great lessons. There's some wonderful books out there. Here's some really old books. These are, again, in the neighborhood of 100 years old. Children's books. Timeless stuff. They teach lessons. And they do it in an amazing way. I'm John. I'm the Hat Guy. Have a great day.